ABC News Political Director Rick Klein joining me now for more. Why don't we start with Florida? Boy, there's so much to talk about. But Ron DeSantis, right? Looks like he's going to be the contender going up against Donald Trump. What do we think?
Well, he's got to get through his primary tomorrow. Actually, doesn't have any opposition, so he'll be fine with that. He's got to get through a general election campaign this year, and then maybe use it as a springboard. And we've seen in the past governors get that second re-election, think George W. Bush, and then you run with a big head of steam into the fall. We're about to learn a lot about what Ron DeSantis can do on a national stage. He's also reached down into a bunch of local races, state education board races and the like, to try to get his kind of conservative candidates on there. And that redistricting map that Florida has is purely a result of Ron DeSantis and the muscle that he pulled in Tallahassee. Now, how this translates to a national level, we've started to see him campaign a little bit around the country. What that becomes in the coming months will be very, very important. The Democrats would love to defeat him before he has an opportunity to run in 2024, but he certainly is the flavor of a month and maybe 6 months, Kira. People have been talking about him for a while. He's been putting a lot of conservative points on the board while a lot of other conservatives are there on the sidelines. All
right, we'll talk about Democrats in just a minute, but DeSantis, he's referred to as the more sane Republican versus Donald Trump. I don't know if anybody's sane these days, but put that in perspective. Is that really necessarily the 100% truth?
Well, look, he's a very smart guy. He's got law degrees from Ivy League schools. I mean, he's been out there and working hard to establish this reputation. He probably wouldn't be a governor at all if not for Donald Trump's endorsement. So he played that relationship very well. Now he's tried to be a little bit careful. You saw how he reacted to the raid at Mar-a-Lago. He was fiercely critical of the FBI, even more so than Mike Pence, who says, let's reserve some judgment. There's no question that Ron DeSantis has some hard-right conservative beliefs. He does it in a more deliberate style, is less of a shoot-from-the-hip style, but there are some undeniably political crusades that he goes on. Just last week, announcing with some fanfare that a new election task force had found about a dozen or so felons who he says voted illegally. That was a major investment of money. It sends a message to the Republican base. He is a calculating politician, has had a very small circle of advisors, is very unknown nationally, except for in national conservative circles, where he's become something of a rock star.
Speaking of somewhat of a rock star, Liz Cheney sure became...
I thought that was about me. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, that's a given.
Of course,
Hello. I mean, come on, Rick doesn't even... You should run for president. I'd vote for you.
Oh, please.
But Liz Cheney, you know, a lot of people really, you know, on both sides of the aisle, admired how she came forward, went up against Trump. Everybody, you know, talking about how she really stood on character, not necessarily with the party, but on what was right. Now she's giving this exclusive interview to our John Carl. There was a lot of news, actually, that came out of that interview. She even mentioned possibly a run for the White House. Okay, put that in perspective for us.
So she's probably running. When someone says they're thinking about running, they're often pretty far down the road.
They're not just saying that.
They're not just saying that.
She's already prepared and kind of set the scene.
That's right, and I'm not making a bold prediction in this. What she has said is she's thinking about it now. She lost her primary just 6 days ago, but she has been planning for some time for a next act. That includes this year campaigning against candidates who deny the legitimacy of the last election. And in 2024, she says she'll do anything it takes to stop Donald Trump getting anywhere near the Oval Office. Well, that could be endorsing people. It could also be running. The big question on everyone's lips now is, does she run as a Republican or does she run as an independent? If she runs as a Republican, I don't think anyone really thinks she's going to light the world on fire in a Republican primary and suddenly win in Iowa and New Hampshire and the like. More likely that she plays spoiler of some sort. If she runs as an independent, does she take votes away from Trump if he's the nominee? Does she take votes away from the Democrat? There's a lot that has to go into all of those calculations. There's no doubt in my mind that it's not the last time that we're seeing Cheney's name on a national ticket at some point.
But you even brought up the point that if she does go forward, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see her on the debate stage and fully engage. I don't think a lot of people understand the restrictions.
Yeah, so the Republican Party controls its own qualifications, or tries to control its own qualifications. And one thing they said last cycle was you don't get to play in a Republican primary debate unless you pledge to support the other candidates. Donald Trump famously didn't do that right away. It took a while before he made a pledge like that to the other candidates. Remember the moment with Brett Baer on the debate stage where when he raised his hand And ultimately, Liz Cheney can't make a pledge like that and say that no matter what, I'm going to support the other candidates. Republicans are already working behind the scenes to maneuver against allowing someone like Cheney, a purely, anti-Trump, never-Trump candidate, to be on a debate stage with someone like Trump. She acknowledged in an interview with John Carl a couple days ago, Kira, that she recognizes that the RNC is going to probably maneuver against her. Whether or not she's on a debate stage, she could run as a Republican. The question becomes, where's the best strategic play for her? And how does someone who just lost a primary back in Wyoming make that credible case?
All right, we've got to talk about Democrats. I know I'm going a bit off script here, but we were chatting during the break. So we're talking a lot about the Republicans and all the interesting characters, DeSantis, Trump, Liz Cheney. But when we want to talk about the Democratic Party and what we could see on the other side, you were saying it's pretty much up in the air. I mean, this could get interesting.
So we've never had, in some ways, it's the weirdest kind of year, because we could have a rematch of 2020 with Biden and Trump running. We could have either or both of them not running again. And it's very easy to see the scenarios. Look, we're going to see Biden back out on the campaign trail in the middle of this week. He's got a big rally just out in the suburbs here in Maryland. That's sort of the kickoff to his fall campaigning. He's been on vacation for a little while. Before that, he had COVID. He has not been a factor in national politics in terms of these primaries for the most part. We're going to see him reemerge and reengage. I think he and his team will make a decision to whether or not to formally declare shortly after the midterms. And the midterms matter, for that matter, because if the Democrats are able to hold the Senate, maybe even win a seat or two, that's a pretty good argument for Joe Biden. If they lose control of Congress altogether, that's not the greatest argument. We've heard out there, our campaign reporters out on the trail sometimes have a hard time finding Democrats who say that Joe Biden should run again. That's the harsh reality that would have to get confronted by Biden, even though he and the White House say he's all in for another term.
Other names that could be thrown out there?
Well, certainly the vice president. I mean, I think Kamala Harris would almost certainly run again. I think people will talk again about Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar, some of the others who ran last time. I think there's a couple of governors that people aren't really talking about as much right now. We've heard a little bit about Governor Pritzker in Illinois, Governor Newsom in California. Look at Governor Roy Cooper in North Carolina, winning twice in a redder state. That could be the kind of profile. There's always surprises.
Oh, yeah. And that's what makes it fun. We need some surprises. I think it's time.
Something like that.
All right. Rick Klein, our true rock star. Thank you.
Thanks, Kara.
All right.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.